Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's video. I'm very much excited to have a wonderful guest with us today. Dr. Bruce Floro. He's a phenomenal physician leader. He has wealth of experience of serving different remarkable physician leadership roles, and we are here to learn his experience and advice that how a early career or mid-career physician can pursue leadership opportunities, as well as how a physician can shine in their leadership journey. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Floro.
Thank you, Dr. Hoque. Good to be here.
Thank you. If you kindly tell us a little bit about your career journey.
Sure. So, my wife and I, we moved to the southeastern United States, and I started training as a physician. I never realized I was going to land where I did in terms of becoming an executive and running a large organization. So for me, it was iterative over time, the way it built. But as I look back on it now, I realize that one of my passions has always been in developing people. And leadership is another form of development, whether it was back doing it as a program director or continuing medical education, and then for executives. So my background, I was a family physician, over 30 years of clinical practice, a physician executive. I was an executive vice president over a $4.5 billion a year company and running leadership institutes. And today, I do executive coaching around the country and have the good fortune to work with executive leadership from coast to coast, from California all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So I've gotten to wear a lot of hats over the years, if you will. And I'm glad to be here with you today and maybe share some learnings.
I'm very much excited that you are taking your valuable time to joining us today and to sharing your insight with our audience. So when I was going through your bio, your all the accomplishment, it's like truly phenomenal as well as absolutely inspiring. So what motivated you to pursue all these C-suite roles after being serving program director for nearly a decade?
Yeah, so I think at my core, I like to build things and develop things. And I had built a residency program and ran it for a dozen years and got people started in their careers. And organizationally, there was a new need emerging at the time. Electronic medical records beginning to really take over across the country. And there was an organizational need for someone to lead and champion that work. And I had already deployed medical record systems and become fairly adept in technology. And was approached and asked, would I be willing to take on this role? And I did, and leaned into it pretty hard in terms of putting, at that time, a $190 million medical record system in across 11 hospitals, and putting the structure in place to make that happen, and learning the organizational challenges along the way. So it was a challenge. It was exciting. It created a sense of purpose. And each time I made another career shift, it was always about that. Exciting, purposeful, making a difference. And if I could satisfy those elements, if you will, I would naturally gravitate towards that kind of work.
Wonderful. So, being your serving as family physician, then program director, then C-suites, lot of transition, lot of changes. So if you kindly share with us, which maybe particular challenges, 2 or 3 you faced, and how did you overcome along the way?
Yeah, so first is credibility as an executive, right? Physicians, we gain our credibility based on our clinical expertise. And most executives, non-physician executives, look at doctors and they find them to be credible and smart, but they don't always embrace them as executives running the business, if you will. So one of the first things I had to do was really take a deep look at myself and how I showed up. And that's what I do with executive coaching, is help executives look at how do they show up, how do other executives receive them, and to carry ourselves differently, whether it's in the boardroom, in the C-suite or out and about inside of an organization. So one is the continued personal growth and development around executive presence, the way we show up to others. Second, I noticed, the idea of systemness. When I was brought in to do C-suite work across this multi-system organization, it was not one system. It was a federation of states. It was multiple subsystems, if you will. And in order to do the kinds of work I was being asked to do, I needed to bring people together. Instead of people fighting or arguing with each other, that we needed to find the commonalities amongst one another and come together such that we can drive standards to drive results. So that was really the forefront, if you will. As a family doc, people management, relationship management, bringing people together, embracing change, that was all elements of change management. And that was where I began, really giving people a voice at the table and earning mutual trust and respect around change. And then third, I would say, was the issue of physician alignment. And I get to see this so much, even still today across the country, where there's the administrative side of the organization and then the physicians, and sometimes they are at odds with each other. They might be together amongst themselves, but there's an us-them approach, as opposed to full alignment, that we're in this together, and helping bring the physicians on board in a way that was meaningful. That was work that had to be done. And I spent more than a decade doing that to move a large organization to a fully aligned system.
I'm very much, passionate to learn and practice executive presence because I echo with you. I believe this is absolutely critical. So if you kindly share some of your advice regarding executive presence.
Yeah, executive presence, so many people have their own ideas about what that means. But there's a difference between what you intend versus the impact of you, right? So your intentions may be pure, but the impact of you may be something other. So executive presence is beginning to consider, how do you show up to others, right? What is the experience of you by others? It's not necessarily the way you dress. It's not necessarily the words you use. It's the totality of how you show up to others. So executive presence at its simplest form is leaning into a conversation in a meaningful way such that you are heard and understood, right? Hey, when I'm talking to a board member, I'm not talking down to them. I'm not talking up to them. I'm not talking around them. I am, in fact, on point with my message, engaging them in meaningful conversation. So often physicians will take a personal pet peeve and they will leave the conversation. Maybe a meaningful board member or an executive wants to talk about a topic, a difficult topic, and yet the physician has a personal pet peeve, and the next thing they're talking about a patient in a ward that they interacted with this morning. And it's completely off topic and it's not helpful to the conversation. Executive presence means I can stay in this conversation and show up in a way and contextualize my conversation and not go down here to one-off pieces, if you will. It's a powerful thing. So yes, dressing appropriately, that helps. The pace of your conversation, that helps. The choice of words you use, that helps. Understanding and listening, 2 ears, only one mouth, that helps. All of these constitute elements of executive presence. And by the way, virtual technologies have made it even more difficult, right? It's hard enough with nonverbal cues when you're sitting with someone directly. Now, when you go through a medium such as we're using today, it becomes even more difficult, and you need to be more purposeful. What is the message you're trying to convey? What do you want the other person to hear? Have you heard and listened to the other person? That's executive presence, caring, compassion, empathy, and purposeful conversation to drive results.
What a wonderful reminder. I agree. Like most of the time, we think whenever the executive presents what comes, that how we dress, how we, use our words. However, purposeful conversation, caring, compassion, empathy, active listening, all those is the package of executive presence.
Exactly.
Dr. Flora, if you kindly share your advice that what strategies should a physician, particularly at the early career physician, follow whenever he or she is pursuing leadership opportunities?
Yeah, leadership every one of us is a leader, right? We're leading our lives. We lead in our families. We lead in our clinical practices. So there's a whole spectrum of leadership, but each and every one of us are already leading our lives and leading in our families and leading in our ecosystems, as we sit here today. Moving into the executive space, where you are now running company or business units, et cetera, is just a natural extension of that. So some of the things that help practitioners, clinicians move from being viewed as just a clinician, just a clinical practitioner, just a physician, over into full-on administrative executive leadership, it means you need to demonstrate you've got certain competencies that are not intuitive and obvious in medical training, right? We weren't taught the principles of business. How do we do finance? How do we do strategic planning? These kinds of things. So, there is a role here for formalized education to backfill knowledge gaps, knowledge deficits in terms of putting your best foot forward as an executive leader inside of your respective organizations. So that's training, education, and experience, straightforward, right? In addition to that, don't shy away from opportunities to use what you already know and have to lead. Bring your voice to bear, listen hard, and then engage. It might be a project, it might be a pilot, it might be a unit, it might be an OR, it might be a medical directorship, but there are ways in which to get your toe in the water, so to speak, as a clinical leader and grow and develop in that space. And then over time, maybe that grows and grows, and you supplement that with formalized education and readings.
That's a wonderful reminder. And I agree, it's challenging to know all those business terms, financial terms, because as you mentioned, nobody was taught about it in our medical school. However, in the C-suite, it is absolutely essential and expected to know those. So any advice that how a early career or mid-career physician can hone this financial acumen in order to prepare themselves for these roles?
Yeah, increasingly now we're seeing physicians who want to get into administrative leadership go on and get advanced training. and that comes in a variety of places, everything from masters in medical management, masters in business administration, master in population health, certified physician executive training. There's a whole host of ways in which to get additional credentials. And those credentials now are becoming a must-have in terms of being seriously considered for a full-time position in leadership. That's different than experience, right? You can have all the credentials after your name. If you don't have any experience, it's hard to break through. But increasingly, I think getting some formalized education will help. Early career people, absolutely, it's becoming a must-have. Mid-career people, if you've got enough leadership experience as medical directors or unit directors, et cetera, sometimes that's enough to make the transition. But I would say those two things, education and then experience where you can get it, will make the difference. And of course, it's always going to come down to how other people see and receive you, right? If you are the malcontent, if you are the problem child, then nobody wants you on their team to go drive new results. But if you are viewed as a part of the team and are, an integral part of the team, then people absolutely want you to participate, and they will find places for which you can lead and grow and develop.
I agree. Definitely, perception inside the team, outside the team matter, and that can bring new opportunities and truly can harm the potential of getting opportunities. So in my view, there should be, different strategies between early career physician and mid-career physician to pursue leadership positions. So do you have any advice that how these two, I should say, stage of career differ in order to get the leadership opportunities, and what should be the strategies to pursue?
If you're early in your career, meaning you've had minimal clinical experience, then you haven't had enough time to generate or create a reputation of clinical excellence. And you're going to be viewed differently if you're trying to break into administrative leadership than would an applicant be who's been practicing for a number of years and has already earned a reputation as clinically excellent and therefore earned the right to be at the table. So there is a distinction between the two. If someone's trying to go directly from medical school residency into administration, then they've got to have a really sharp business acumen. They've got to have the credentials behind them, or they're really not going to be able to get from here to there. Mm-hmm. In terms of mid-career people, this is where your experience levels are much more important, right? The kinds of things you've been doing, because you can tell a story. You have a track record of performance. So I think they're different. Mid-career people can go to programs, the American Academy of Physician Leaders being one of those, but there's a host of them out there where you can do sort of simultaneous training while you're doing the work. Whereas an early career person who's made a deliberate choice to go into administration needs to take more academic approach, I think.
I agree. I think, strategy is different, as you mentioned, that, building credibility, building the experience goes a long, long way. I know that you have a phenomenal experience of, executive coach. So what do you think, like how doing this executive coach training shaped you as a person, like in your professional and personal development?
So executive coaching, in my world, there's kind of three spheres, if you will, that people interact with outside help. There is mentoring, and many people are experienced with mentorship, right? There is consulting, and there is a coaching. And the distinctions between them is a mentor shares with you how they would solve your challenge. Mm-hmm. A consultant shares with you how the industry is solving your challenge. But an executive coach is helping you figure out how you're going to solve your challenge. So there are three different perspectives, three different inputs, if you will, into solving whatever issues are in front of you. So executive coaching is really helping people be the very best they can be and polishing the diamond, if you will. We as physicians are the top 1% of educated people on the planet. So we already know that as a genus and species of human being, we're smart, right? You're intelligent because you made it, right? You're a doctor. You've got that level of education and experience. Now, to be the very best, helping people see their blind spots, helping people polish out the edges in terms of how people receive them. That's what executive coaching is. So I get to work with really high-performing people around the country and help them see themselves better, contextualize themselves inside their ecosystems, and then put their best foot forward so that they are better received and more effective in their roles.
So for me, executive, I know about this term. I know from many other colleagues that it was helpful for them. However, personally, I never went through executive coaching. So if a physician is wanting to know about executive coaching or wants to get training, do you have very brief overview that what should they expect or how often they can interact with their executive coach?
So you're asking me for them to become an executive coach or to get an executive coach?
I should say both experts, very briefly.
Okay, so they're two different things, right? If someone wanted to become an executive coach, then I would clearly recommend they go through training, and there are certification training. And inside of that, there are two spheres of, two schools of thought. There are many, many proprietary programs across the nation that teach you their way, their approach to coaching. And they're very good, but it's kind of a one approach to executive coaching. Then there are academic programs that teach you multiple approaches to coaching and the science and the background, if you will. And that's the option I chose because I wanted to see it all. So I wanted to have a deeper understanding around what executive coaching was, and not just have one set of tools, but have multiple tools available to me. So as people look around the nation and they'll see both academic and proprietary training programs, they won't come up with a short list. There'll be a long list. And then geographically where you are, what your time commitment is, et cetera, you look at those and go. In terms of when you go into coaching, you have to go into it and you have to be ready to take a deep, hard look at yourself. You can't help other people if you're not really comfortable in your own skin. You can't, be exhibiting transference or countertransference or reacting to people, no matter what they say or what they think. You're there to help them. So coaching really is about getting neutral in your responses and really focusing on the person in front of you. On the other side of the equation, if you're looking to get a coach, when you interview a coach, look for someone who you have a rapport with, that you can create or feel you can generate a sense of mutual trust and respect with, because you need to be fully disclosive with that person. If they're going to help you, you've got to really be willing to come to terms with who you are and how you show up to others. And invariably, we will do 360-degree assessments of people and show them how they show up in ways that they've never heard before. Sometimes they have an inkling, sometimes they don't, particularly high performers that are, their whole life has been go, 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 get things done. And here they are now, they've reached it. And now how can I be even better? What can I do differently? How can I carry myself, conduct myself in such a way that I can drive better results?
I agree. Like as physician, we are like always go, go, go. Now it takes truly time and insight to, okay, so what is my next move? What is the true purpose in my life and how I can be fulfilled as well as being successful in my own terms.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of international medical graduates in the US health systems, and they are definitely at various stages of their career. So, do you have any particular advice for international medical graduates who want to pursue leadership opportunities in their physician careers?
I don't know that it's unique to international graduates. I think for anyone that wants to break into leadership in the healthcare sector, you've got to learn the language. Maybe that's the connection, right? You've got to become proficient in the language. So we speak doctor speak, and we can have a clinical conversation and people around us may not really understand what we're talking about. And not a small part of what we do in administrative leadership and executive leadership is we have to talk business speak. Well, that means you need to be proficient enough and understand it. I think you mentioned, so I've written in this space a lot, and to help people get a broad understanding of what is it like to be an executive leader and to develop the language to understand. You don't need to become an expert at finance or balance sheets or P&L reports, et cetera, but you need to be conversant with it. Just like as an internist or family doc, you don't necessarily need to be a neurologist, but you need to be conversant enough around the elements of neurology to know when to make the right referral, when to consult your colleague. And in the business arena, that's where you need to be, right? So learning the language, learning the mechanics of it, and that's where I think having some kind of a construct, hey, where are the holes in your education and understanding? Don't assume you know a lot. A case in point, strategic planning, physicians often have never been exposed to meaningful strategic planning. Maybe strategic thinking, and those are different things. What is your ability to engage in that space in a productive way? You gotta first have to know what those things mean. How do you show up in those things, and how might you begin to carry yourself in that space? So learn the language, become conversant in it, supplement that with some education, training, and then ultimately experience, and you will go far.
Thank you. It's a great advice. I agree. We're a strategic thinker, but not like, for example, personally, I never been taught that how to do a strategic planning in my medical school or residency. At the same time, being a leader at any health system, this is very, very important. Dr. Flor, I was going through your website. I know that you have been author of a couple of wonderful books, and the most intriguing for me was your 6P. So if you kindly share your 6P principle for our audience, I believe we will be benefited from this.
Sure. So the 6 Ps of leadership for healthcare professionals, that book came about because it was such a need. I was teaching leadership development, had run a series of institutes for many years, and I had a colleague come to me and said, look, you need to write this down. I need an enduring material. So I sort of quickly wrote down and created a booklet, if you will, that we published, and we used that for a number of years as a syllabus. And as I got deeper and deeper into it, and once I trained through Georgetown with executive coaching, I rewrote it and put out the newest book in a much more substantial way to help people with the tools and mechanics of it. But at its face value, it's about giving people a roadmap. So I use 6 Ps as a roadmap. So, and they'll all resonate for this audience, right? The first P, people. And we go into relationship management. How do you show up to people? How do you interact with people? A second one is the presence. And we've talked already today about executive presence. How do I show up? How do I show up in email? There's a biggie. How do I show up in virtual meetings? How do I show up in meetings themselves, right? A biggie, presence or executive presence. Another is perspective. How do I view the world? This is the entire science of cognitive psychology. Some of you may have not even been exposed to cognitive psychology. Yes, we got human behavior, dynamic, et cetera. This emerging field, now not so emerging, it's so large, helps us understand the way in which we process information. It's massive, and it's the place to begin in terms of changing our behaviors going forward. Another P is process improvement. How do we systematically go about making improvements in organizations? We've talked about the principles of business, both strategic planning and finance, and finally, politics. And for some people, politics is a bad word, and that's not the case at all. Politics is simply the ability to influence decision-making one person at a time. It's influence management. So I put a lot around these idea of 6 Ps to give people some construct around how they show up, where to drill in terms of making changes in themselves to move forward. So it's a work of love for me. It's been something I've done, I teach that around the nation, but largely it's helping physicians with a roadmap so they can make the conversion from clinician to executive when and if they choose.
When I was going through, your 6P, your blog, I found tremendous value in them. And in fact, I was going through them yesterday. I was truly fascinated that how you brought your real world experience and how truly you were fitting them in the real world context. I believe, that was very helpful for me to learn those parts.
Well, so that makes warms my heart, because that's my purpose, right? Is trying to make a difference in people's lives. And this is a place where I see organizations make a mistake. I see shops around the country that just stand up leadership training programs, and they will hire somebody off the shelf, or they send their doctor away to some training program, et cetera, and they miss the opportunity to really put their organization to work for them and to really embrace the doctors in the cultural transformation, right? So imagine the two distinctions. I can send you off to a program and you sit through a finance workshop and you'll learn what a balance sheet is and how to do a cash flow statement, and you'll learn about P&L reports, et cetera. But imagine how much more impactful it would be if you sat inside your own health system and the chief financial officer stood in front of you and went over their balance sheet and went over their profit and loss reports and went over their cash flow. It's so much more impactful, right? Just like as a physician, some people say, well, how could you remember the chemistry panel and what the potassium was? Well, if I'm just memorizing raw numbers without context, it's hard to remember. But if that potassium and that BUN were critical because you were watching them because the clinical scenario was such, you needed to know them, you would never not know the potassium and BUN in Mrs. Jones in room 207, right? So relevancy. So really great leadership development programs are done inside the context of your own clinical ecosystem. That's powerful. It just drives and motivates people to make improvements in themselves and the organizations they serve.
What a powerful reminder. And, I was just thinking about it a few days ago because as a medical director, I run a unit and I was very much curious to know, okay, how this is financial growth is doing. And I agree, rather than learning all about like cash flow, as physician leader, like we must need to know, okay, what is going on inside so that we can develop our process. So any advice like, how to find out more in-depth knowledge of inside organization financial flow, or how to reach out to that chief financial officer? I will be truly appreciating that technique.
Yeah. So one of the things that they teach in executive coaching training, if you will, is this idea of curiosity, right? We as physicians often are having to tell people what to do. It's like going to the code, right? Shock, 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 et cetera. We're giving the orders. And that's not being curious. It's not our natural tendency necessarily. It is when you're trying to interview someone and come up with a diagnosis. So lean into that space and be curious. Find out who's administratively responsible for the unit you work in or something that you might have a passion around, and demonstrate curiosity. Hey, who would be willing to meet with me and just orient me around how we do XYZ, or what the financials of XYZ are, or why we make the decisions around XYZ the way we do? I want to understand, right? So this demonstration of curiosity, it's not threatening, right? So people tend to be willing. You need to be respectful of their time. And by the way, the time horizons in the executive space are very different than they are in the clinical space. When a doctor asks for something, they expect it like now. Whereas in the administrative space, you say, hey, I'd like to get together with so-and-so because I'd like to understand a little bit more about the service line. Okay, we'll put that on the calendar, and that might be in 2 months. And you need to respect that, right? It's not urgent, or maybe it's only in 2 weeks, but it's probably not today, is my point, right? So be respectful of their time, and they will meet with you, and then demonstrate curiosity. You can demonstrate curiosity, people, and give them the room to tell their story. They'll tell you, hey, Bruce, I'm so glad you asked. Let me help you understand why we did X and not Y, or why we see it this way versus that way, or why we built the wall, or why we put the unit up, or why we can't expand the critical care unit. And you just listen and learn. And then you may actually have some insightful ideas. Hey, now that I understand, I can maybe help tell the story better. And you suddenly become their advocate. It's powerful. So my message is be curious, and be time respectful.
So that brings me to other important question is that, for example, when a physician is interested to pursue any specific position, and I know that sharing the interest to the higher leadership that, okay, I want to pursue this position is important. However, what are your advice that how a early or mid-career physician can tell their higher leadership about their interest to move up in the career ladder?
Yeah, so it starts with outreach, right? It starts with outreach. And don't be shy about that. Again, schedule the time, call ahead, get to their assistant, get on their books, get on their calendar, as opposed to the following. Physicians may be at a meeting and maybe the CEO is there or the hospital president, et cetera. And there's this tendency to want to go sidebar them before, after, or sometimes even during a meeting. Don't do that. Instead, if you're going to approach them, say, hey, Executive XYZ, would it be okay if I got on your calendar sometime maybe the next few weeks and just come visit with you? And of course, they're going to say, yes, of course, come visit with me, right? And then go schedule some time with them. Outreach, reach out to these folks and you will find them accommodating. as long as you're respectful of their time and their calendars, and then go meet with them and talk with them. When you get there and they say, well, okay, Dr. Floro, what do you want to talk about? And you now demonstrate what I said, curiosity. This is powerful. So don't sidebar people at meetings. That's annoying at the very least and not productive. Instead, schedule time on their calendars that's convenient to them, and it'll make a world of difference. And then once you understand their agenda, understand what they're doing, you can pick and choose where you might want to insert yourself. Hey, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. You know, of all the things I've heard, this one thing you're working on, that's really exciting to me. You think there's any place that a role for me to play? And what you've just done is planted a little seed. I said, well, you know, let me think about that. I'll talk to the team. And they go off and talk to the team and say, oh yeah, we'd love to get Dr. Floro. He could work on such and such a committee. And then do it. When they come back to you, absolutely volunteer, lean into it, do it. You will learn and you will contribute. And I will tell you, learning and contributing in a place that makes you feel purposeful is the antidote to burnout, right? The antidote to burnout is maintaining a self-perception of purposeful behavior. Hey, what I do matters. So many doctors I've seen across the nation feel like what they're doing no longer matters, and they get burned out. There's a spiral. When you do this, you're doing purposeful work that matters and you feel impactful. It's powerful. It's uplifting. It's motivating. And I would suggest that's the route to take.
That's truly powerful, and it's a great reminder for all of us. Any final advice for our audience, our physician who want to pursue higher leadership as well as more leadership opportunities?
Yeah, again, first and foremost, when I think about leadership, it's lead yourself, right? You got to take a look at yourself. And what kind of life are you leading? Are you investing in yourself in all the spheres of your life, your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, the entirety of you, not just your professional well-being? So look at, are you leading your life such that you're a role model for others? Second then is, what team is it around you today, and are you leading the team? It may be your office-based team, it may be your hospital team. Lead the team. And you can already start, as beginning today, you can start to make a difference in terms of leading the team. And then third is leading the culture. Can you actually lead the organization in a way that's impactful, moving it forward? So just thinking around that, I think of this as what I call it the drone view. Drone, you fly your little drone, it flies up in the air and you got a camera on it. Well, if you put the drone up and it's hovering over your head, you get to see yourself in the context of the organization you're sitting in. That's your first step about insight and awareness into yourself. As you fly that drone a little higher, you start to see yourself in the context of your team. And you go a little higher yet, you start to see yourself in the context of the organization. And you keep going higher and higher with that drone and get broader and broader and broader context. So you understand your role in the context of all things around you. It's powerful. So leadership is around self-awareness, right? And then once you are self-aware, you can choose to behave differently to drive results. So I would encourage you to take deep looks at yourselves. There's lots of things you can read about it to help you with that. Certainly exploring that with colleagues. And then when and if ready, reach out to people. They're all around you that are willing and able to help you advance your careers in leadership. So with that, I wish you all the very best luck. It's worth it. I can tell you it's worth it. Well, there's a huge need for physician leaderships in healthcare in America today, right? We're at a crossroads, and we need physicians not to just be hamsters running on a hamster wheel, but to rise to the occasion to help healthcare be high quality, lowest cost, right? High quality, lowest cost to drive results. That's what we need. And who's better positioned to do that than physicians? So rise to the occasions, make it happen, and fulfill your purpose.
Wonderful. How can our audience reach out to you, Dr. Floro?
Sure, you can email me. You can go to my website. My company's onexpedition.com. It's ONEXPEDITION, onexpedition.com. And if they go there, they'll see the books. They'll see about me. My email is there. My cell phone is there. or just my last name, first initial at gmail.com, and shoot me an email. Happy to talk to any of you. Again, it helps me fulfill my purpose in helping all of you fulfill yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Flora, for taking your time and sharing your extremely valuable insight and perspectives with me, with our audience. I know that it will be extremely helpful. I have learned so many things from you, and I know that our audience will appreciate it as well. And I look forward to having you once again to our channel.
Great. You all take care now. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you will find value from this video. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon so that you are getting notified for all the new videos. Your subscription means a lot to me because it gives me motivation for making more and more interesting and useful videos for you. I wish you all the best, and please share this video with your friends and family members whom you believe will be benefited. I truly look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, take care and wish you all the best and peace.